Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the DDT Method podcast. Now, if you've been paying attention for a little while, you'll know that we go in every direction on this show, and we're going to bring you people in every aspect of performance and longevity. And today, I have somebody to speak to you that's going to bring you something that you might not have ever heard of before. We have Todd Shipman here, and he's going to discuss everything quantum tech and how the quantum world can not only enhance your longevity, but your day-to-day performance as well. Todd, before we dive into quantum, give us a little bit of background on yourself.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me, Drew, and give me the opportunity to even talk about things that make me so excited, like quantum. I got into this whole world of what we want to call alternative health, biohacking back in a little before like 2010. I was a competitive ultra runner. So I ran the 100 to 200 mile ultra marathons, all while I kind of like grinding hard in a ineffective way. So I was still not eating healthy. I still eat pizza and Taco Bell. And then I'd go out and try to train for a 50-mile run or a 100-mile run. And I'd run for 12 hours a day. And I wasn't doing very effectively. And I just kind of got into it when I realized I had finished this race called Western States 100 miler. It's like the Boston Marathon for 100 milers. And they, at the end of the race, usually after you run 100 miles, you can't walk for a few days, understandably, right? Your hips, everything hurts, and you kind of hobble. And they at the end of this race at the finish line, they had this like localized cryo machine that I'd never seen before, and they just blasted my hips and my hamstrings and calves with this machine just for like 2 minutes, and I could walk the next day. And it really created a, gosh, what am I missing? Like, what have I been missing out on? And as an extremist as I was back then, I just went crazy on everything. And I started learning about PEMF and hyperbaric chamber and, literally every kind of technology, INS and, red light and the basic stuff. And it just like, I really created a passion of learning all this stuff while kind of dealing with a mom who was pretty sick with a lot of different autoimmune diseases and had kind of just been thrown away by the, oh, here, take Oxycontin for your fibromyalgia. And she knew it wasn't good for her. I didn't know the details, but it really taught me that there were all these alternative ways. And I also wanted to be a bridge for especially my mom, on how to learn all this stuff and then to bring it back and package it in a way that she could understand it when I explained why things were better for her. So that's kind of where I got into all of this. And then, been with Bulletproof and kind of spread around through the last 15 years. And where I find myself now is just the passion of finding companies that I absolutely love and connecting with them and working with them and helping with like educational material, content, and just educating people. Cause that's where I find I have a really good niche with that, where I can again explain things so that my 12-year-old twins can understand it or my mom.
Awesome. Now, with the quantum tech in particular, this one has been around for a little while, and it's starting to catch a little bit more popularity because biohacking is becoming a bigger phenomenon, and more people are communicating about it. The biohacking communities online are getting bigger and they're expanding, but there's still that kind of bridge that doesn't exist between the people that just want to push back death a little bit longer, the performance crowd, the gym crowd, and quantum just seems to be this emerging world that is kind of good for everything. Like, tell us a little bit how you got into the quantum world specifically. What was your first deep dive into that, and what made you want to keep going?
Yeah, and let's step back for a moment, because just the word quantum, I understand it tends to have a pretty nasty stigma to it initially for most people. Because I know I used to scroll down my feed and see quantum, patches and quantum stickers and this, and it kind of just creates this really massive woo-woo aspect, because there's a lot of like unethical marketing out there, especially not just with that, but in general in like the alternative health and biohacking space. There are a lot of scenarios where companies are stretching the truth and again using unethical marketing to, I'd say, prey or take advantage of people who are very sick and desperate to feel better. And I can see where the quantum term and quantum world gets really meshed into that. There's lots of different quantums, and there's, just to say, like, we're kind of on more so on the quantum physics perspective here, what we're going to be talking about today in the podcast, there's quantum mechanics, quantum biology, quantum computing, and we're more so in the quantum physics. Just to be clear, this isn't just a random quantum word that we're making to make it sound cool, you know. And that's kind of again how I got into this in about 2015, back when I was really focused on my social media and had the opportunity to test out a lot of products and then show my following at that time, like, well, this works. I like this. I was doing the carnivore diet and all these different things. And, you know, I was always open to getting my foot put in my mouth. And one thing for sure was the carnivore diet. Not to go off too much of a tangent, but I thought it was horrible. To eat that much protein is the worst thing for me. It'll cause inflammation. Now, and I did a year-long study with that, and turns out that I don't keep it that way, but like I never felt better, especially with my running. You know, so that was one of the first things where I'm like, oh, foot and mouth. Yeah, I was wrong. So that's exactly what happened with quantum, because I was tired of seeing these stickers back then. They were like quantum EMF blocking, and they use those words, and those words alone are they're an oxymoron. Because if you have something that's quantum, it doesn't block. So if you're blocking your cell phone, that means you can't use it, which would be a Faraday cage, which they do have, but you cannot have a patch on your phone that blocks EMFs, right? So those were things that just really bothered me. So when I had this company reach out to me, like, oh, we have this quantum necklace. And I was like, yeah, send it. And I'm going to make you regret sending it to me. Kind of that was my mindset, you know? And they sent me this necklace, and it's a legitimate company. And what they had done is it had all the micronutrients in it. So what I had done prior, and I'm a monotonous eater, I was eating carnivore back then, so I could eat the same thing every day, all day. I can still do that happily. And what I did is I got a baseline of my micronutrients, and I was short or deficient in like maybe 5 or 6 of them. So what I did is I started wearing this necklace that had the frequencies of all this. And again, it sounded weird to me. And I was like, can't wait for the tests and to prove this stuff wrong. And 40 days is what they told me to wait. So I waited 40 days and I went and got a SpectraCell micronutrient test. And, you know, I don't know how much those cost anymore. Back then, they were about $600. So they're really expensive. And I did the test and everything came back optimal. Nothing was high. It was just all optimal. And I was like, okay, well, we'll see. Placebo, we'll figure it out. I'm always a placebo person of like, possibly our minds are so powerful. So I'm open to it. So I waited another 40 days, same diet, and got tested again. It was all optimal. So I did one more 40-day cycle and everything was optimal. And then I took the necklace off, waited 40 days, retested, and I was back and I was basically low on everything that I had started on. So granted, this isn't some like Stanford study that I did, but it was enough for me to go, there's something to this for sure. And that was enough for me to, again, be like, okay, I want to look more into this and what is quantum? What is quantum energy? What exactly is quantum energy? And maybe we should start with that too, Drew, because I've been using that word left and right here, but like quantum energy is basically the energy behind the matter at a subatomic level. So this isn't something that was invented by us or as humans created it. It's been around since the existence of time. It's just behind everything. And it's not a positive energy and it's not a negative energy. It's just neutral. So it's neutralizing, which is where we see a lot of the benefits because it is neutralizing and harmonizing everything that it comes into contact with. So it doesn't, again, it's not a positive, negative. It's almost like like a safe bubble or like you've bubble wrapped yourself and you have access to the quantum energy.
So if I'm picturing this, if I'm just trying to literally draw a picture of it, if I'm looking at like a picture of a cell or maybe even on a deeper level, pictures of atoms, is
Mhm.
this like the paper in the background is
Yeah.
kind of the quantum energy?
Yeah, even the space on the paper might be like that's a great one. I've never even thought about that, Drew. And that's a great perspective of it. And I'd almost say it's in between the lead and the paper, you know? So like if you
Awesome.
drew it with a pencil, it's that space in between the lead and the paper in a way. It's like that's a great analogy. I'm getting excited because that's a really cool analogy you said with that. And I've never considered it that way. But yeah, that's where
Awesome.
it's
By
at.
all means, steal that. I'm a man of analogies, so
All
steal
right.
it and run
Yeah.
with it. But you mentioned that you had this piece of quantum tech, this necklace, and it had the micronutrients in it. Now, at first, you say that somebody might listen to that and think, well, wait a minute, did they take the nutrients out and put nutrients into this? And then you mentioned frequency. So, can you describe frequency a little bit and how that ties in?
Yeah, well, frequency is information. And that's where a lot of this stuff can also be a little hard to grasp, and I understand that because again, I came from the end of all this being it. That's why I have all the understanding in the world for this stuff sounding weird, sounding like magic, and sounding wooish. But you know, I would hope that a lot of people can at least be open to, we have people like Tesla, right? And you want to know the secrets to the world. It's all like vibration, energy, and frequencies. And if you can see that everything is a vibration and a frequency, I think it'll open you up to a lot of more opportunity of what's available, especially because it's communication. So we're thinking everything is physical matter when that's not so much the case. Everything really is vibration and frequency based. And so when we're able to send frequency as like, again, communication or information, it's instant. There's no time in between. The quantum space, there's no time and there's no like travel space, if that makes sense. What we did find, this is going off on another thing, when they did the 2022 Nobel Prize that was awarded on quantum entanglement in physics, they found that there's nothing faster than quantum entanglement in terms of communication. And to compare that, because some people, we've always known that, speed of light is the fastest, right? But the difference between the two is speed of light has a point A to point B, and quantum entanglement in the quantum field is instantaneous. There is no hesitation. Doesn't matter the distance, doesn't matter anything. Something could happen, across the universe, and it's instantaneous compared to speed of light, which is point A to point B. So it's a really cool thing that they figured that out too.
So when we're copying frequencies per se, we're basically utilizing quantum entanglement, and it's taking almost the effects or the vibrations of these nutrients and it's putting it in a physical object. Is that kind of what's going on?
That's pretty much exactly what's going on. And, in a perfect world, we wouldn't need food and substance. I don't say we wouldn't need, because most people enjoy the taste of food that we wouldn't be getting from the quantum entanglement of the frequencies. But it is to a point where, Ian Mitchell, the head scientist over at Lila Quantum, will always say, is like, well, if we were all enlightened, then yeah, we wouldn't need to eat food or drink water. We could take in, and our body would utilize everything that's vibration and frequencies, but we're not. So we still need substance. We still need everything that grounds us, but you can get it's almost like a massive supplement. So it's a significant supporter for nutrients, for many other things. The frequencies that you can put on there are pretty much endless. You can turn, everything is a frequency. So if you're able to harness it in some way, you can utilize it.
So this goes for supplements, maybe even pharmaceuticals. Does it go for other objects? Like what type of frequencies can we copy and move into other objects?
Well, wow. I mean, that's a great question. And pretty much anything, like with Lila Quantum, we have these blocks. And what you can do is, for example, is you could take, I mean, gosh, you could take like a ring or a piece of jewelry, whatever, any kind of metal you're wearing or your watch, and you could put that in the block, and then you could utilize that block to transfer frequencies, similar to how I just talked about all those micronutrients. So like you could take your creatine, you could take your L-theanine and GPC alpha, all that stuff that you would want, and put them in the block, and you can transfer those frequencies onto that piece of jewelry you have. And now you're wearing that jewelry that is resonating at those frequencies.
That's amazing. Now, what about just utilizing the energy within the block itself? Like, I've seen some footage online and I've seen some people's anecdotal experience posted out there that they're just putting in like random food, they're putting in water, they're putting something in and not necessarily copying another frequency. What's happening when you're just charging something with quantum energy?
Yeah, well, I mean, at base level, the words aren't base level, but you're basically removing any disruptive waveform patterns. So what that really means is, think about it as like the ocean, and the ocean underneath is really calm, and up top you see all the waves crashing down. Imagine just wiping all that off and it just being smooth. And that's what happens when you're putting things into this, like the Lila quantum block, because it's a quantum energy generator. Why that benefits people. One is, we have a test through, most people might know Dr. Emoto from the water studies that he had done. And we sent some of our products to the Emoto Institute in Japan. And side note, after they did the test, they were so impressed with the benefits and the effects that happened with the water, is they actually asked us if they could sell our products at their institute. And we are the only product that they actually stock and sell there. So you can charge the water, you can add frequencies to the water. So you're structuring the water, you're changing the tension, the texture of the water just by putting it under this block. And we can show this through studies, third-party studies, the Emoto Institute doing this for us, as well as other places have done this for us. You can do that with food, especially with fruit. And the fruit is really cool because also fruit is full of water. And when you're structuring the water, you're enhancing the flavor of the fruit. So putting your fruit under there can change it. But one really cool thing is, and we've done studies with this, and I am severely allergic to crab, honey, and avocado. Like, not fatal, but if I eat it within seconds, I've got 6 to 8 hours of torture where my throat's closing a little bit, it's burning, my nose, everything's on fire, my eyes and itchy, and it's not comfortable. But what I can do is I can take some of that crab and put it under the block for about 6 minutes. And then when I eat it, it does not give me any problems. And now that we started playing around and experimenting with about 5 years ago when I tried it, when again, Ian Mitchell tells me like, oh, the block, removes anything that's harmful. So I was like, well, let me try it with food. And I did. And again, power of placebo, I thought. So for like the next day, I had my wife either decide for the next few days, either put it in the block or not in the block and not tell me. And I would know if I ate it right away that either I'd have a response or not. And it was always consistent with either she put it in the block or not. Again, not Stanford or Harvard's clinical studies, but I did it myself enough to say, this is really cool. And then we even did this at the biohacking conference in front of like 1,000 people where we showed them how I did like a derma roller on my forearm. And then we rubbed the crab into my arm and it instantly blew up like 100 bee stings. And then we took that same crab, put it in the block for, maybe 6 or 7 minutes while Ian was talking to the crowd, and we redid my other arm and there was no issue. So there was more people that started coming about saying, hey, I'm usually allergic to this or that, like lemon juice or something, and now I can consume it without a problem. Now, that's not saying that if you have some fatal, anaphylactic shock issue to just go and eat this. But what we have been doing now is we actually have had a real study, an official study done. And all of our studies that we've done are double-blind, placebo-controlled studies. And what we found, basically, the end result is that charging your food with quantum energy creates a 92% suppressant of like negative things to your body. So like gluten and sugar, it's going to suppress it by 92%. And they can see that over and over again. So there's a lot of things you can do inside the block, Drew. Like that's just even maybe 2 or 3 easy things, but you can put your body parts under there. You can put your clothing under there, your phones under there, lots of things.
Let's stick with the nutritional aspect of this for a little bit, because I think that's something that's going to pique a lot of people's attention. Now, we're talking about taking food items that certain people might have sensitivities to, basically because they're sensitive to something that's disrupted within the food. Let's go a step further, and let's say we take crab, for example. Great source of protein, healthy food item. It doesn't sit well with you. I'm completely fine with it. I have no issues with crab. We put the crab in the block and we harmonize it essentially. Now you can ingest it and have no issues. Theoretically, can I now ingest it? And even though I had no issues before, am I now benefiting from it more? Can I absorb more of the nutrients from it? Is it supercharging that food, or is it just for people that have issues with food?
Dude, that's a great question. You're the first person to ever ask that. And I just have to acknowledge that because it's when I do podcasts and people ask questions that I haven't heard before, it's very appreciative. So thank you. And where that goes with that is it does increase it. And because it's also allowing it to vibrate at a higher frequency. What we can see now, not through Lila Quantum, but through another company, what we've done is we have charged supplements using Lila Quantum technology. And with the actual clinical studies we did, we saw a 30% increase in efficacy and digestion of the nutrients. So I would say that everything you consume in there, you put in there and you consume is again, it's vibrating at a higher level. So it's more almost bioavailable to you.
Now, was this, and we were speaking a little bit before we started recording, was this the company where you mentioned the B complex vitamin and the niacin reaction that you had?
Yes. Yeah. So with Wizard Sciences, there's an entire line of quantum charged supplements, which can sound weird to people, of course. And that's why, we showed this. But one of the examples was we have the data on there showing a 30% increase in efficacy, bioavailability of each one, but where that also can be experienced. And again, I can laugh because it's my own self, but not that I think people enjoy this. But the B complex from Wizard Sciences has niacin, but it has the minimally non-flushing version of niacin, and it only has 80 milligrams of it. And when most people consume it, they get a full on niacin flush that can last like an hour and a half to 3 hours, which should not happen, especially from 80 milligrams. If I want to purposely have a niacin flush, I personally would need to take like 800 milligrams to a little more to experience a niacin flush. And this is the version that is so subtle and it should not give anyone a niacin flush. And it does. And it's because it's quantum charged and it's enhancing it so much.
Now, that is not only fascinating, but that's really cool for me to hear based on the fact that you're probably the third or fourth person I've heard something similar from. In that, now we spoke before, and I mentioned I always do my research before these podcasts. I usually deep dive, I spend a bunch of money on stuff, and it's basically because I'm putting people on my podcast that are going to talk about things that I'm interested in because I feel like I'm my target demographic. So it's, by the way, side note, the best way in the world to cultivate a small business off of getting a bunch of free consult calls with brilliant people. I feel like this is highway robbery. But nonetheless, in my research for all this, I've spoken to several people that I respect very highly in the biohacking world, in the longevity world, in the performance world, who have utilized either Leela Quantum products or Wizard Science products. And I've heard that across the board that in some cases, these basic products, these magnesiums, these B complexes are almost too strong. And I mean that in a good way. Now,
Yeah.
since Wizard Sciences is quantum charging their supplements, and I'm sure they're going the extra mile and sourcing everything incredibly well and whatnot, but if we have the block at home or any means to quantum charge our own things, can we take our own daily supplements we're already taking and make them better or more effective by putting them in the block?
Absolutely. That's all that's being done. There's nothing behind it besides for Wizard Sciences, we literally put them in the gram block. But you can use any of them. So the quantum block, infinity block, any of those, even our travel block, you can be putting them in there. The different blocks is used to minimize like the strength and the range on them. So the bigger the block, the less you have to put things in there to get the same results. And plus, we're doing it on a commercial level, so the gram block's big enough to put a bunch of bottles in there. But for sure, I'd be putting, even if you like your heal capsule, Drew, like you could be putting that next to some. It takes a little longer, but like overnight, if you're not going to wear it, I'd put that in your supplement cabinet and let things like take it on like that. So it still works that way. I mean, the capsules are much weaker than our blocks, but if you have a block, for sure, I would be putting almost everything you can consume, drink, any of that goes into the block here at my house. Like I have a gram block, so my wife takes it's big enough to put like two of our Whole Foods grocery bags, and those go in there before she ends up ozonating the produce or washing things and put them in the fridge.
Now, I'm so sold on this, like I was telling you before. Like, not only do I have the Heal capsule that I'm wearing right now, I went and I ordered a super block, which I believe is the
Yeah,
biggest one you guys got,
yeah,
right?
yeah. That's awesome.
All right,
Hmm.
good. I'm kind of a sometimes to a fault an all in person, so I just
I
scan the
get it.
website. I'm like, what's the biggest, baddest one we got? Because if I'm going to experiment with this, I'm going all in. So
Yeah.
that said, if I get this now, I'm absolutely going to put my supplements in it
Mhm.
because this podcast in nature is catering to people that want to enhance their performance, be it for immediate results or be it for longevity and biohacking purposes. I got to ask you, can I put my peptides in there and will it make my peptides work better?
So, one of our mutual friends, Mr. Alex, when he was playing around with this stuff, that was one of the first things he told me. It's not anything that we have any science behind in terms on our end. But Alex was telling me, he sent me a voice text about how like they had, if I remember correctly, they had to like decrease by like 2.5 times, like with insulin levels on his clients, because yes, it's going to enhance all of that. So, in many ways. So one thing I do is like with GLP-1s and like all that is I put them under there to get it so I don't have such negative like results in terms of side effects. So I'm like, for a while I mean now I just stay retatrutide, but like before when I was doing like semaglutide, like that was pretty nasty, the side effects I was having. And I definitely, I mean, I could say anecdotally, I felt a big difference without the lack of nausea. Was it tolerance? It could be, but I jumped up in big numbers. So I don't have that as like fact. but peptides will definitely enhance it, mainly because also just especially if they're already reconstituted and they're in the water, like you're going to structure and you're enhancing that water, and just on the science of structured water, it magnifies everything that's in that water, whether it's minerals or what. And if you're doing that with the Lila block, you're structuring it.
Amazing. That was my first thought is I got to put my retatrutide in here. And I may or may not put a whole kit of serostim in there, but that might not be good marketing material right off the bat. So I'll experiment, then I'll report back to you privately and maybe we can post it, maybe we can't. Question about that though. So you mentioned that we could put some peptide supplements in there and decrease any sort of negative reaction. Now, I know the niacin flush, even though it's not pleasant, it's not technically a negative reaction. If we are charging supplements, peptides, PEDs, anything like that, do we have to be careful that we're not enhancing anything to the point where it's going to be too strong or give us any sort of undesirable effects in that regard?
Yeah, I mean, I would be mindful to the point where I would not be taking the normal dosage. So, for example, ideally with the niacin flush, I'd be taking half the dose. But it's just one pill, so unless I cut them in half, or not cut them, but I made them in half. But if you're taking whether it's any other vitamin, I would start with half of it. If you're putting them in the block and charging them, it also will let them probably last longer. So I would be cutting your dosage in half, just because of the efficacy increase.
And in that said, it probably makes sense to utilize things that we're doing to enhance performance, longevity, well being. Probably not a good idea to put like blood pressure medication in there or anything, right?
So there's definitely like a concern about putting any form of prescription pharmaceutical medication of any of that stuff in there for multiple reasons. One is because, again, it is going to neutralize some of the harmful things. Now, that being said, sometimes um, the things that are in those pharmaceuticals, even though they serve a purpose, and you could be neutralizing the things that are serving the purpose. So I would not put anything that is prescribed to you, because it can either increase some of it or decrease some of it, and those tend to be pretty sensitive ratios. That I wouldn't mess with those at all. So kind of as a blanket, we say stay away from prescribed medication, putting those in the block.
Now, I had a feeling, but I just wanted to put that out there because my fear is we're talking about getting more bang for your buck out of your retatrutide or out of, let's say, an injectable L-carnitine or whatnot. I don't want somebody to listen to this and put their, their beta blocker in there, and they fall asleep or something like that. So yeah, let's nip that in the bud right now. If you're listening to this and you want to supercharge some of your supplements, some of your pharmaceuticals in the performance aspect, cool. If it's keeping you alive, maybe just do it how the doctor prescribed. Or
there's a time when emergency medicine works. Don't mess
exactly
with it.
exactly. Don't have a heart attack and all of a sudden put the defibrillator in there and whatnot. So that's a whole other tangent. This is amazing though. So if somebody wants to start utilizing this technology, where do you think somebody should start? Should they just do what I did and dive in and just buy a super block, or do they start low and then work their way up? How do we, let's say, attack this from a performance aspect? Let's not say general biohacking. I want to feel a little bit better. I want to extend my life. I want to harmonize some EMFs, which I do want to talk about eventually.
Yeah.
But let's say recreational gym goer, male or female, 30s or 40s. They want to get a little bit of an extra kick. They want to get a little bit bigger, a little bit leaner. They want to feel a little bit better. Starting from scratch with no other direction, what do you tell that person to do and what to start with in the quantum world?
Sure. I'm gonna mention one thing prior to that, because we're gonna talk at the very baseline and the performance level, because I think that's important to bring up with our products. Is everything that we can talk about our products, the difference is that they're all charged with quantum energy, which is some of the benefits we've talked about. And then the difference between the products really are the frequencies that are imprinted into these. So any product you get is going to be charged with the pure quantum energy. And that alone is where all of our studies are coming from. So when we have these studies, about 60, 65 of them on the website, it's not from frequency medicines and any of that stuff. It's literally just being exposed to this quantum energy. So you can technically start with anything of ours. And as long as it is from or from one of our products, you're going to find the benefits. And let me just step on these benefits that are going to help you at the gym real fast, because this is just with the pure quantum energy. It doesn't matter the frequencies or anything like that. But what we see, and again, these are double-blind placebo-controlled studies, is we're seeing up to a 29% increase in ATP production while being exposed to quantum energy. So having that capsule that you have on your neck, around your neck, that's going to be while you're working out. That's up to 20. It's about 24 to 29% ATP production. We see a 200% increase in wound healing. We're seeing red blood cells increase, white blood cells become more efficient. We're seeing HRV increase 7%. And I'm bringing this all up because this is all significantly important for recovery as well as in the moment working out. We just did a study that showed, I'm going to read this just so I don't have the wrong numbers, but this is really good for working out. So we saw being exposed just to having one of our products. It doesn't matter which one it is, in your brain wavelengths. So we see a 77.6% decrease in gamma, an 82.9% decrease in beta. Now those are the I want to say they're the bad because everything serves a purpose. But gamma and beta are what give us anxiety. They give us stress, and trickles down to cortisol rate, being raised and keeping us out of a parasympathetic. So we see an increase in alpha by 1,300%. So it's 13 times more alpha activity while just being exposed to quantum energy, right? And again, 7% increase in HRV, 2% increase in REM, 3% increase in deep sleep. And these are all with 256 channel brain wavelengths. These are multi-million-dollar brain scans that we're doing these studies with. And I'm only mentioning it because, to me, that's what's important when working out is the recovery, the flow state, and the energy there when you need it, right? So that being said, we do have some workout specific products. We do have the 3-in-1, Olympic capsule too. So that's going to have frequencies that also assist. So think like beta alanine, serapeptase, NNM, CoQ10, PQQ, like a bunch of frequencies are added into that to give you another boost of energy. Beta alanine is amazing, especially when you're working out, stopping with the lactic acid. So there's a lot of really cool caveats to this, when will it work? When will it not? And for actually at the gym, to me, that's hands down the best one. We also have, I don't want to go too far off of this because we're talking about Lila Quantum, but we do have a sister company called Quantum Upgrade. And that's very different. That's we're cruising at 50 miles an hour right now on the highway, and going up to Quantum Upgrade can be 100 miles real quick because it's quantum entanglement, which is also very different technology. But that's what we see a lot of pro athletes are using because you're able to utilize these benefits without having a physical product on you because it's based off of quantum entanglement. So we have UFC fighters, Beneil Dariush, Misha Tate, tons of NFL, tons of Olympic athletes utilizing that technology with the performance frequencies that we have without having to have jewelry on them. So
that's absolutely fantastic. Now, I know we're not getting into Quantum Upgrade too much, but that one, like you said, more quantum entanglement based. And in my research, it looks like that's something that you can use to affect positively your entire home, your pets, your car, and that's utilizing that quantum entanglement method that you were talking about before.
Yeah. So Quantum Upgrade is everything that Lila Quantum is. So physical products, Lila Quantum is all the physical products. You hold on to them, you purchase them, we ship them to you, and you utilize them through your day-to-day life. Now, Quantum Upgrade is entirely based on technology of quantum entanglement, meaning there is no product. We just need to have information of you as an identifier, and we put that in our system. And again, we don't transmit or shoot frequencies at you. They're gained in through your access through quantum entanglement, which I get. I try to keep this as simple as possible because I accidentally shifted the conversation real quick over to that. But it is for someone who doesn't want jewelry or products or anything like that. That's a great way to start because we have, a 15-day free trial with no credit card used for that. So you can even try it. Nothing to lose, literally. And that is what, again, Misha Tate, Beneil Dariush, all these people are using it while in the octagon, so they don't have to have jewelry, but they're benefiting from, again, the 1,300% increase in alpha brainwaves. As an athlete, that's where you want to be. If you're that pro baseball pitcher and you want that perfect game, you want to be in a flow state. You want to be activated in alpha the whole time. And that's what we're seeing from this. So it's really it's blown up with the pro athletes because now they don't have to wear jewelry or anything with it, and they can switch over to certain frequencies.
That's fantastic. And yeah, I did want to touch on that briefly, just based on the fact I did see that you guys are offering the free trial on that one. So that might be a good way for somebody to dive in, but not overly commit and just try something out. So we'll link that in the show notes so people can take a look at that as well. Going back to Lila Quantum and the physical products, though, starting with the necklace, using that for performance in the gym, and then maybe even using that, like you said, to keep with your supplements overnight and just give a little bit of an extra charge there. If we want to take that a step further, what direction do you recommend going? And again, strictly for performance enhancement, recovery, building muscle, losing body fat. Like, let's make this almost surface level cosmetic, keeping in mind that we're driving performance also.
Yes. So I would the two necklaces that we have, actually all our three necklaces are pretty specific, but could be beneficial to everyone. So we have the the heal capsule, which is our most common, and I suggest anyone to purchase that because it's a whole wide range of different types of frequencies for micronutrients. And all of our stuff's going to have, the neutralization of EMFs as well. There's a whole, and all the benefits I talked about earlier. And then we have the Olympic Performance 3-in-1, which again has all the different types of frequencies that you would utilize while at the gym. And we also have a women's and a men's booster capsules. And these have frequencies for like bone, skin, nail, and hair health, and then also gender specific hormone boosting for you. So, depending on which one you're wearing, it's going to help it's going to help kind of like balance out your hormones. So that's a good way to start. And then I'd go right, like for performance, I would probably either move over right up to a block because the blocks are where they're at. But I always recommend the capsule so that you can actually like have an experience with our products before investing $1,800. Well, I mean, we have some blocks are $800, but like, believe the one you picked up was probably about 1,800, I believe, off the top of my head, maybe
It was
more.
up there.
Yeah. So it was somewhere around there, which is a big investment. Now, at the end of the day, it's worth it. I mean, there's so many things that you can do with this, but I am fully aware that if you're new to this and you're like, wow, that's like, it's like trying to buy a car. Like you're not going to just go, most people don't just go and pick it up. They want to do some research and check it out first. And that's where the capsules come in. But, really, again, we have frequency cards, and for anyone who's actually watching as opposed to listening, like we have these frequency cards that I keep around, and this one's for abundance, but you can get this for like performance. So if you don't want to have the necklace around you, and you also don't have to wear that as a necklace. Now that's by far the most common, but you just need it within 3 feet of you. So if you have a gym bag or something, you could put it in there, wrap it around as almost like a keychain, or put it in your pocket. You don't have to wear it. Just for people that are wondering. But you can also do those little frequency cards like I showed, about the size of a credit card. So they can go in your as a wallet or purse, or you can have them in your pocket and you can get performance-based frequencies off of that too. But I try that or the cap. To me, the capsule is much easier to wear, and you get the benefits from that. And to experience it and feel it, and then know that the investment's going to be worth it if you go on to something bigger.
Now, one thing that I do want to point out, and I'm pretty sure you'll agree with me on this, it's that we live in this age and we live in this time where people are like, show me the proof, show me the studies, show me everything that's out there. Now, you guys are doing more and more just placebo controlled research studies on this. So it's coming out there. You guys are releasing all this information that's showing these things that are happening. Now, for the people that are out there saying, like, well, I don't have this concrete, proven, written in front of me, this happens definitively. My rebuttal to that is basically going to steal a point that somebody made to me a long time ago about blood work. And it was that we have all these markers in blood work that we look at, and there's hundreds, if not thousands at this point in time. The thing is, there's actually hundreds of thousands of blood markers that we have no idea they exist yet. We can't see them. We can't measure them. There's so many metrics that we do not have the technology to look at. Go back 100 years, we couldn't look at basically anything that we can look at now. So to say that we have the metrics that can be measured and that's definitively it is absolutely ridiculous, because 50, 100 years from now, we might have a way to just flip a switch and see what somebody's energy looks like on a quantum level. And we probably will get there, probably sooner than later. So before anybody starts commenting, and you know what, if they want to comment, go ahead and comment. It helps in the algorithm. I don't really care. But if people want to comment and question whether or not I want to see definitive proof that says this happens no matter what, well, some of that is there. Some of that is not. And some of it, albeit probably a lot of it, is coming down the line when we get there. With a lot of this stuff, you just have to, I don't want to say have blind faith on it, but you have to do your research. You have to talk to people that have actually experienced it before. Now, I think you guys have a Telegram group. I haven't had the privilege of jumping into that yet, but I'm sure you've seen tons of anecdotal reports of people using this for a variety of reasons. What are the things that you're seeing? What are some of the reports that you've heard back from people from all walks of life?
Yeah, our Telegram, we have technically have three Telegram groups because they're so big. We have one for Leela Quantum, and there's about 8,000 people, and it is active, very, very active. And then we have one just for Quantum Upgrade, um, which has, I think, just 4,000 now, and it's focused just on that. And then we have another third part company called Trom Easy. There's about 1,000 people in there. So I really rely on that group to find out, like, to be, I feel like I'm in the trenches of like, how are people using it? Cause now it's our group. We started it, but we have no control over what's said. If someone tags us, we'll talk. But if you go in there and ask a question, it's going to be other people answering it, and they answer quick. It's a very active group. And if you want us to chime in, we will, but we let it flow with the customers, because honestly, that's the best way to go. Like, you can hear me talk all day, but it's much better to have someone who has no association talk about the benefits. And the way a lot of people on there are definitely feeling it would be like they have the block and they create their own. So again, you and I, we're wearing our capsules, right? And you can, like I said before, you can transfer frequencies, and you can basically create your own. So you could have your own blend of, again, vitamins, supplements, make them last much longer going that route, and then wearing that jewelry or piece of metal everywhere. People do this for their friends. Same thing. We're seeing things, if you want to go into quantum entanglement, this is how the quantum entanglement side of it started for us. Was, let's say, and people are doing this all the time. People are doing this for people they don't even know, and it's amazing. For example, Drew, let's say you don't have any Leela products at all. And this is I understand that this might be a little hard to grasp for people, but this is endless, over and over, double blind, placebo controlled studies that we've done. And this is like the substance of quantum upgrade, not to bring that up, but this is how people are using the block. So Drew, let's say you have 0 Leela products at your house right now. And let's also say for a moment, you have no EMFs, nothing around there, right? Everything's quiet and calm. And you talk about biomarkers, like that's how we're testing all this stuff, because people don't see EMFs and sometimes they don't feel EMFs, but you have biomarkers that do not lie. And regardless of what you want to, if you're feeling it, your biomarkers are screaming at you what there's stress going on. So the way we're testing this is we can test your HRV. Of course, we can do calcium channels, your heart rate, which is still there, but you can tell, and then live blood analysis, so dark field microscopy. Like, that's how we're testing, and that's how we're quantifying and measuring the biomarker adjustment with EMS, for example. So let's get your baseline, nothing's around you, you get your numbers. Then let's all of a sudden bring you back to real life, like where we're at right now. You and I are on a podcast. And now you have a Wi-Fi router next to you. You've got some other electronics, and you retest your numbers. And of course, what's going to be likely is your HRV is dropping due to the stress. Your heart rate increases due to the stress. Cortisol levels could go up. Calcium channels get a little excessive. And we've measured all that. So now what we can do, and this can, again, I understand this is very hard to grasp, but you can do this over and over again, and it works. And it just really, I think it's hard to grasp as reality when you hear these. But like, you could literally take a photo on your phone, take a picture, text it to me, and me over here in Sonoma, California, I can take that photo and put it under the block, my block here in Sonoma, and let's wait 10 minutes. And then let's get those biomarkers tested again of you. And all of your biomarkers are going to be the same, if not better, than pre-EMF exposure. And that's through quantum entanglement. You do not have a block. You have nothing in that room. It is all through the identifier of your face and you being put into the quantum field. And I get that sounds crazy, guys, but you can do that test over and over and over. And those are those things that really shift almost how we view reality, because there's science like that gets suppressed like crazy, because the things we can do, the things that are available to be able to heal people with frequencies, and finding out what's wrong with people and then sending them those frequencies that their body is, deficient in. There's so much possible with that. And they don't want this type of stuff to get out.
Now, to back up a little bit to something you said earlier, there was a Nobel Prize awarded for work in quantum entanglement, correct?
Yeah, and so that was in 2022, and it was from two scientists. One was in Austria, and the other one just happened to be in Walnut Creek, California, so eastern San Francisco, East Bay. And what they were doing was they were basically poking the cell in Austria, and this entangled cell that was in Walnut Creek was again, it was responding instantaneous. And that is how they also discovered, like I mentioned before, that quantum entanglement in the quantum space is faster than the speed of light, because there is no time, and it's real time, and quantum entanglement, disentanglement in general, like if that's hard to grasp, think about twins. If some of your audience has twins, I have twins, and let me tell you, it's a nature versus nurture experiment all the time, and it's awesome. But I can tell you the times where, like, they've done real studies with twins where they've had them on the opposite side of the country, and they tell one to sit down and the other one sits down instantly too without being told. It's just a thing. With my twins, there was one time when they were probably 4 or 5 where I was with one of them and the other one was outside, and the one I was with just fell to the ground, was like, my arm, my arm. And I was so confused. So I didn't know what happened. And like 2 minutes later, the other twin ran in screaming. She had broken her arm, the same arm that my other twin had been holding. And she knew it and she felt it because they're entangled. And, so that those are baseline things to start. And that's not quantum entanglement, that's entanglement, which is a real thing. And we can see that significantly with twins who are entangled. But yeah, the Nobel Prize was awarded. And so again, yes, quantum entanglement sounds like magic. Quantum entanglement sounds woo, but physics is acknowledged it, and it was awarded a Nobel Prize on the research. So it's legitimate, but I also understand that it sounds weird. I get that.
Yep. And based on how it sounds, I just wanted to make sure we double down on that, because last I checked, they don't really hand out Nobel Prizes for holding hands and singing Kumbaya under the harvest moon during your astrology sign time of the year, or whatever the heck people don't want to believe in. The Nobel Prize is a pretty serious thing. So
Yeah.
if anybody wants to immediately start casting doubt, Nobel Prize guys, come on.
Yeah.
Moving on a little bit to EMFs, because I do want to touch on that before we wrap up. Some people are very aware. Some people are moderately aware, and some people aren't aware at all. Now, a couple weeks ago, maybe a couple months ago now, I had David Herrera on the podcast. He's known as the Solar Athlete. And David's a world champion power lifter and one of the most intelligent people I've ever spoken to. And he had a cascade of issues arise because there were cell phone towers constructed within a very close radius of his house. And it made such a big, detrimental issue in his life. He ended up building a house as far away as humanly possible to get away from those things, and saw exponential increases in his health, his longevity, his performance, and everything in between. Now, David's a guy that leaves no stone unturned in terms of doing everything perfect from a mitochondrial level to a physical performance level and everything like that. And he noticed a very, very drastic difference. What are EMFs doing? And how can we use this tech to not block them, like you were saying, but harmonize them? And what is harmonizing?
Yeah. So EMFs, electromagnetic frequencies, and there's also a difference. There is, when people are talking about things that are harmful, it's NN EMF, so non-native EMFs. That is more to be focused on than just EMFs, because planet Earth gives off EMFs. It's something, though, on an evolutionary level, we're used to it, and that's why we should walk around barefoot. Like, those have been around. Our bodies are used to it. Non-native EMFs are more so around for the past few decades, and our body is still in shock. And what is this? Why is this happening? It's like a silent killer. It's like, we don't see microwaves or cell phones. You don't see EMFs, but they're there and we know it. And we can show it through biomarkers, and what's happening with them, though, is think about it as like, if we have someone behind us right now screaming in our ear, like, we can't focus. Our bodies kind of go into a fight or flight. It's intense, right? So think of it like that, but it's silent because you have this attack constantly coming on you. Not everyone feels it. Not everyone, experiences that. But again, your biomarkers do not lie. And even if you don't feel it and you're sitting there feeling normal at first, your HRV will drop. Your heart rate will likely increase a little. Calcium channels get so confused and they just go overboard. So there's a lot, and again, the dark field microscopy, so live blood analysis, you can actually see the blood start to what they call money clot. They look like little money bags or money coins, and so you see the blood start to get really sticky, and we can see this regardless if you're feeling it or not. So, but what EMS are really doing, they actually age the body due to cellular damage, oxidative stress. They cause an increase in cortisol and really kind of messes with your sleep. So those are all things that, at a performance level, you don't want. So where the quantum energy comes in and benefits is the neutralization and the harmonizing. So this does not block EMFs. It's going to basically harmonize or neutralize the harmful effects that EMFs have on the body that we're testing with the biomarkers. That allows us to sit here and have this conversation, Drew. Like, I have my AirPods in, I have an Apple Watch, and we have Wi-Fi, all of that. And I can test my biomarkers while I'm exposed to the quantum energy, and they're going to be as if I have no Wi-Fi in my room. And that's a wonderful thing. The founder of Lila Quantum was the vice president of T-Mobile, globally, T-Mobile, for a very long time. So he's been on both sides of the pendulum and he wants to work at a place where how do we synergistically work with luxuries like Wi-Fi, like cell phones. And it's that's the way to kind of do it, is be in the middle. Now, on the other end, like Lila Quantum does make EMF blocking clothing. So we have EMF blocking clothing that's underwear. We have t-shirts, jackets, hats, beanies. We have all that. And they're also charged with quantum energy for certain frequencies. But we do have the EMF blocking clothes for people that are like excessively dangerous or that is dangerous for them. So we kind of fill that void too for people. And at least our EMF blocking clothing actually looks normal. That's one thing I like. For me, I always call it like low-key biohacking. Like, I don't like to walk around in public with like, hey, everybody, look at me. I'm doing something weird. I'm doing something weird to be healthy. And that's just how I've always been. It's like, I don't want to go through an airport. There's a lot of EMF blocking clothing, but some of them legitimately look like you're going to rob a bank. And I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to walk through TSA wearing a face mask and there are companies that make that. And it's like, why call that attention to you? So ours are like European style, super nice. Our jackets are like the Montclair jackets. You can wear them. They're very functional. I've been in like 25-degree Fahrenheit weather and be totally warm with it. They're very nice. So you can do that. But EMFs in general, they're a silent stressor. They stop your mitochondria, basically has to stop what it's doing and focus on protecting you, kind of creating a shield. And when that happens, you lose energy, you lose the ability to heal, recover, your sleep gets messed up, so things that people need to worry about, like, cars are one of the worst. The EV cars are just wild. The damage that they do to us. But like, if you live like in an apartment or a townhome, and I'm not here to fearmonger, I'm here to educate, because also in the day, it's not going to kill you. These are just stressors on your body. And if you're trying to be optimal and tweak the little 1% things, these are the things you want to be mindful of. Like, so if you live in an apartment or a townhome, be mindful, or at least think of the idea of like where you lay your head. Where does your neighbor have their Wi-Fi router? Is it on the other end of that? Are you sleeping next to their Wi-Fi router? And if you're wondering why you can't sleep well, I mean, that's a pretty simple answer. So
people tend to shoot for the low-hanging fruit first, and I understand that, but it's one of those things where people need to really come to terms with the fact that you might not want to just reach to the bottle of testosterone, then stop there just because I add this, I get stronger, I get leaner, I build muscle. If we attack this from an angle of just making everything work better, then you're going to get to the end result that you want, even if it's a surface level result, much faster. I try to explain to everybody, if you bridge the gap between health and fitness, you're going to make it to your fitness goals faster. Not all of us are immediately chasing longevity. We should be, but I've been there before too, where I've wanted to just be the biggest, baddest MFer in the room. I worked as a professional wrestler. I was a competitive bodybuilder. And there was a time in my life where just having a six pack and being over 260 pounds was kind of the be all end all. And if it didn't contribute to that, I wasn't interested. I wish I knew then that checking all these boxes not only would have given me more time and longevity in that game, but it would have got me there faster because there would have been nothing holding me back. Yeah. Now, before we wrap up, I'm going to throw kind of an off the wall question at you. So I don't expect like the most optimal answer possible, but I wrapped up an interview with a bodybuilder the other day by asking, how do we synchronize and how do we stack up your androgens with your peptides with your nutrition for optimal results? Now, I'm not going to ask you that because that's not what we're discussing. How do I stack up quantum tech with grounding tech or Schumann frequency tech, the earth, with sunlight or red light or infrared light? how do these three things go together? And I know that's almost hyper specific, but how would you stack these three modalities? Because these are three of the most popular biohacking tools that we have.
Yeah. I mean, I do that every day. So I'm trying to think how I kind of will do that. I watch sunrise. I'm going to say sunlight, but let's go to sunrise. Sunrise is the most important thing for our day, for our circadian biology. It sets the rest of the day. It's a domino effect on our hormones. That was proven in, I think, 2017 with the Nobel Prize in biology for circadian rhythm, showing that our hormones are about 24 hours based off of the sun. So it's fascinating stuff. But to really stack that, like, the sun, honestly, to me, sunlight and sunrise, I mean, if you do that and you get enough of that, you don't need the red light therapy because there's nothing stronger than the sun, unless you get too much sun and then you want to use red light to counter the sunburn. But I always have my heel necklace. I am shirtless in the morning and I'm out in my grass watching sunrise. And then for I try to get outside every like 3 hours for like 15, 20 minutes out in the direct sun, and be barefoot to counter all of that. So I think you said grounding, red light, and quantum. Was there anything else I missed on that? The red light's important to me for like acute things, like if I have an injury, or smaller things like that. But like otherwise, since I live in a place that's sunny all year round in California, I do have a lot of red light. I use red light more so at nighttime so I can see as opposed to as an acute response. But I think there's no supplement for nature and sunlight, because you can get all the red light throughout the day. It's just midday has more UV. But if you go outside for morning and evening, that's all infrared and near infrared wavelength. So you're getting all of it that way in a more powerful, effective way.
Awesome. Awesome. I always like to try and steal a little bit of everybody I speak to's morning routine, midday routine, anything that they do, and stacking technologies, modalities, anything like that, because generally the people I'm speaking to, such as yourself, have kind of figured some stuff out that the rest of us might not be there with yet. So I always want to put that out there and give people some examples of how they can use not only the specifics of what we're talking about, but this entire world and everything that we know can enhance our quality of life, our performance, et cetera, et cetera. Todd, this has been absolutely fantastic.
Well, Drew, one thing I want to say, just so I can throw something extra in there too, because I like about the idea of that we do this to help people with their quality of life. And one thing that I don't think people think about enough, I mean, there's ways to definitely utilize that with working out, but is the breath. And I'm not saying go do a bunch of breath work or anything like that, but the breath is the remote to the brain. So exactly how we breathe tells the rest of our body exactly how to respond. If you want to be in a parasympathetic, calm state and come from the heart, you want to know how you're breathing, because that is exactly how the rest of your body is going to be, is how your breath is. Check in every few minutes. Are you breathing through your mouth? Are you exhaling more than you inhale? If you inhale sharper than you exhale, like that's all communication to our body. And just be mindful with that. Try to breathe slow, soft, and smooth, and your whole body will change, especially for recovery. And, there's definitely specific ways to breathe for weightlifting and doing all that stuff efficiently. But like out of everything I've been doing for 15 plus years, like that is what I feel most people miss in terms of a calm, loving, accepting life. And you keep your cortisol down, so you have your aging and you just want a peaceful life. Always just make sure you're exhaling a few seconds more than you're inhaling. It's all communication. If a bear ran into our house right now, what's the first thing we do? Right? We gasp, inhale. What's that send? Everything to our body. Sugar goes, cortisol, everything. And how many times do we do that? Someone cuts me off, right? It sends all these signals. And instead of just focusing on our breath, and I think that's one of the most impactful things we can do, is to breathe and have empathy instead of judgment. So I think those are the two most powerful things I have in life to tell people, for quality of life, is just put yourself in someone else's shoes for everything and have empathy as opposed to sadness or upset or resentment, because that's still a form of judgment. I don't mean that in a bad way, but like have empathy for everyone and breathe and be mindful of the way that breath is. And your life is going to be so much nicer, calmer, and accepting.
Breath work, empathy, gratitude, parasympathetic tone.
Yeah,
We could go another hour on that, I'm
we
sure.
could.
And Todd,
And
I would
didn't want to go on a
love to have you
tangent,
on in
but
the future. Oh no, please.
yeah.
That's amazing. Let's definitely try. I know you're a busy guy and our schedules are completely nuts. Let's try at some point in the next couple months. Maybe we jump on another episode and we just kind of dive into the life of Todd Shipman and everything you've learned over the past several years and what you do. Because I would love to deep dive into all of your modalities and everything you do to enhance your quality of life. That would be absolutely amazing, as this conversation today has been. Todd, where can the listeners and the viewers find more information on you and on Lila Quantum?
Yeah. Well, thank you, Drew. My Instagram is that odd Todd. And then you have Leela Quantum and then quantumupgrade.io. Those are all the Instagram accounts for us. And if you want to go to these Telegram groups that we talked about, if you want to go to the Leela Quantum one, just go to the link in bio in Leela Q and you'll see the Telegram group. Join it there. Same thing with Quantum Upgrade. Just go on there and you'll see link in bio. And there's a Quantum Upgrade one just to learn about it. It's the best way to find out. Just go on there, ask any random question you want. And people are going to answer it. And it's not coming from us. And, they're not connected to us, but they're people that want to help the community.
Awesome. Todd, thank you so much for being here. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been the DDT Method Podcast. We'll see you guys next episode.